You ever feel like no matter how hard you study, some people just get it way faster than you? You spend hours reading, highlighting, and watching videos, yet they barely put in the effort and somehow master it in half the time. Now what if you somehow get your hands on this superpower? What if you could learn anything in just a blink of an eye? Okay, I know that's too much, but what if you can actually learn things that take hours in just a matter of few minutes? Imagine picking up a new language or mastering a skill, or let's say understanding complex concepts faster than ever before. No frustration, no endless hours of rereading the same thing, just pure, efficient learning. Sounds too good to be true? Well, it's not. Because today, you're going to learn a method, which I call TTA for short, which actually stands for time-tested approach, which helps in mastering anything, technically 5 times faster than you ever thought possible. The truth is, learning isn't about how much time you put in. It's about how you use that time. And unfortunately, most people spend way too much of it using the wrong methods. But not you. Not after watching this video to the end. After today, it will be different. You're going to outlearn and outperform everyone around you. So if you're ready to break free from slow, frustrating learning, let's get into the first method, which is the 80-20th rule, which actually means master the most important things first. If you want to learn anything faster, the first step is to stop trying to learn everything all at once. Not all knowledge is created equal. Some things will make a massive difference, while others are just unnecessary noise. That's where the 80-20th rule comes in. The idea is simple. 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. This means that in any subject, only a small percentage of information is actually responsible for most of your progress. The mistake most people make is that they waste too much time on the other 80% of stuff that barely moves the needle. Let's say you're trying to learn a new language. Instead of memorizing endless vocabulary lists, focus on the most common 100 words, because those alone make up over 80% of daily conversations. If you want to become a great public speaker, don't get caught up in fancy techniques like what to wear, or wasting hours writing your speech. Instead, focus on body language, vocal tone, and storytelling, as these 3 things have the greatest impact. The key is to concentrate on what moves the needle the most. Instead of spreading yourself thin over countless topics, narrow your focus to the essential building blocks that will create the biggest impact. The goal isn't to absorb everything. It's to master the core fundamentals that will make everything else easier. Once you build a strong foundation, learning becomes exponentially faster because you'll recognize patterns, connect ideas, and grasp complex topics with ease. Now, 80-20th rule is all great and cool, but it is completely useless until you stop reading and start doing. Most people make a huge mistake when learning something new. They spend way too much time reading about it instead of actually doing it. The problem is, reading and watching videos make you feel productive. But in reality, you're just collecting knowledge without application. And knowledge without action is just like buying a gym membership, but never working out. So in the end, you are left with 0 results. Let me give you a real-life example that you can actually relate to. Think about this. When you first learned how to ride a bike, did you watch hours of YouTube videos and read books about biking? Of course not. You got on the bike and probably fell a few times before finally figuring out how to actually ride a bike. Well, that's how you need to learn everything. So if you want to learn a new language, stop endlessly flipping through vocabulary lists and start having conversations. If you want to get better at communicating with people, stop watching TED Talks and start recording yourself speaking. If you want to get a better writer, start writing. It's just that simple. By the way, if you're finding these tips helpful and want more proven strategies to supercharge your learning, consider subscribing. Your brain retains information much better when it's actively engaged. The more you interact with what you're learning, the deeper it gets wired into your memory. So from now on, whenever you learn something, ask yourself, how can I apply this right now? Don't shred about it, get up and do it. And the number 1 learning hack that will change everything for you is self-quizzing. By the way, if you're finding these tips helpful and want more proven strategies to supercharge your learning, consider subscribing to the channel. Most people think that rereading notes, highlighting, or reviewing material over and over again is actually studying. Well, it's not. The human brain learns best when it's forced to actively recall information, not just recognize it. This is where self-quizzing comes in. Let's say you just learned something new. Instead of reading it again, close the book and try to ask yourself the key points from memory. If you can't recall, that's because your brain is telling you that you never really learned it in the first place. The act of struggling to remember something is what actually strengthens the memory. Imagine you're studying history. Instead of passively reading a chapter about World War II, ask yourself, what are the main causes of the war? Try to answer without looking at your notes. If you get stuck, go back, review, and try again. Each time you force yourself to answer questions without looking, you make the memory stronger. Are you getting the hang of it? Well, keep watching. Using tools like flashcards, self-quizzing, and explaining concepts to yourself out loud forces your brain to work harder. And that's the key. Learning is about effort, not exposure. The harder your brain has to work, the more it remembers. So don't just read. Test yourself every single time. But there's actually a catch. Here's where most people go wrong. They cram. They sit down for 5 straight hours, try to jam everything into their brain. But science says that's the worst way to learn. Your brain doesn't absorb information in one go. It needs time to process, store, and connect it with existing knowledge. Instead of marathon study sessions, space your learning into short, daily sessions of 30 to 60 minutes. When you give your brain time to rest between study sessions, it strengthens those neural connections, making recall much easier. It's why you might struggle to remember something you crammed last night, but easily recall something you learned a week ago and reviewed multiple times. Think of it like going to the gym. If you work out for 5 hours straight, you won't see much progress. You'll just burn yourself out. But if you train consistently for 30 minutes a day, you'll see real improvement. The same goes for your brain. So don't waste time cramming. Study for 30 to 60 minutes, take a break, and come back to it later. Spacing out your learning helps information stick long-term, so you don't just remember it for a test, but for life. Now, most people like staying in their comfort zones. When they study or practice, they stick to what they already know because it feels good. But that's exactly why they don't improve, which is why you need to challenge your weaknesses. If you truly want to learn faster, you have to attack your weaknesses head-on. Let's say you're learning to play piano. If you keep playing the same easy songs over and over, you might feel good about it, but you're not actually improving. The real growth happens when you focus on the difficult parts, or the sections that trip you up. The same applies to learning anything else. If you're studying for an exam, focus on the questions you keep getting wrong, not the ones you already know. If you're trying to get better at writing, challenge yourself to write about topics that are completely out of your comfort zone. The key is to lean into the discomfort, because that's where the real progress happens. Your brain adapts when it's forced to struggle. If you only practice what's easy, you're not pushing yourself hard enough to grow. So make it a habit to focus on your weakest areas first. It won't feel great initially, but that's how you make real progress. Now, to make things even better, apply multi-sensory learning, which means you use more than just your eyes. If you want to remember things faster, don't just rely on one sense. The more senses you engage, the stronger your brain encodes the information. If you're just reading, you're only using your visual sense. But if you see it, hear it, write it, and physically engage with it, your brain creates multiple connections, making learning much easier. Think about it. If you only read a cooking recipe, you might forget it. But if you read it, say it aloud, watch a video, and actually cook the dish, you'll remember it much better. If you're studying, don't just read notes silently. Read them aloud, draw diagrams, use hand gestures, and explain it to someone. If you're learning a language, watch movies in that language. Listen to music specific to that language, and write sentences using new words. Learning through multiple senses speeds up the process significantly. So stop limiting yourself to just reading or listening. Engage with the material using as many senses as possible, and you'll absorb it much faster. But with all those rules and steps aside, one of the most important things that you should never forget is to make learning fun. And yes, guys, it is totally, absolutely, 100% possible. Everyone usually perceives learning as a routine task, and that's exactly why they struggle. When something is fun, your brain releases dopamine, which helps you focus and retain information faster. If you're bored, your brain won't care enough to remember anything. So what is the solution? Make learning a game. If you're learning a new skill, set small rewards for milestones you achieve. If you're studying for an exam, use apps like Duolingo, Habitica, or Anki that turn learning into a game with points and progress tracking. What I like to do normally is to add an element of competition. Challenge a friend to see who can memorize more, solve problems faster, or complete tasks first. If you make learning enjoyable, your brain will naturally absorb information faster without feeling drained. So stop forcing yourself to grind through boring study methods. Make it fun, and you'll be amazed at how much faster you learn. Try these techniques and watch your learning speed skyrocket. If you found this video helpful, feel free to share it with a friend who needs this right now. Also, you won't want to miss what's coming next. So make sure to subscribe so you're always ahead of the curve. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.